right, so another project I want to talk about is Angry Sharks. And that has ties to kawaii animals, is that correct?
Only like through the
network of people that do really well with this stuff.
Yes. Like Runaway and I Am Groot. Those guys are in communication with Shark Father now it's Slug Father, and they talk a lot. And we have a chat together. There's like 12 of us in this chat, and that's kind of how the syntax has gotten applied. It was through this little communication channel that got set up, and it's really just taken off like wildfire. I'm like, we see it in a couple other NFTs I think that you're going to be bringing up here.
Yeah.
And it's really helping with the floor price to elevate that floor price, eliminate the paper hands, because when they realize that they can list it for above the syntax and get more money, then the floor price rises. And if they don't, then they get penalized on how much they make. So
let's do some terms. Paper hands, somebody that buys with the intent to sell very quickly and make a very tiny amount of money. They're not investing for the long haul.
Right.
They're not necessarily good for the project.
Right, and I want to separate, because there are professional flippers out there, and those guys, I love those guys, because what you do is you provide a market liquidity in the sense that you need to profit. But like you said, paper hands, they'll buy something at like 0.2 SOL, and then
they bring down the floor price.
And then like 2 weeks later, like, oh, I like this project, and then they list it for 0.05, and you're like, you're giving away 0.15 SOL. What's going on here? And some of them are rarity hunters. Yeah. And they just want the mythics and the legendaries and stuff like that.
And the term diamond hands is somebody that's holding it for the long term. They'd like to make diamonds rather than chimp change, since we're talking about AP sometimes here too.
Yeah, right. And so for me, diamond hands is like, for me, I'm holding all my stuff for 10 years minimum. But like in my shows, I'll say if I recommend something, I recommend minimum 18 to 24 months to hold, because what happens is these projects technically on the software side can take longer than expectations in the roadmaps. So you want to be involved, stay involved in the Discord, chat it up, find out what's going on. I mean, it could go quiet for a while, and actually the last week and a half has been really quiet.
Rome was not built in a day, folks.
No.
Hang in there to allow the folks that build these to show their skills, because they didn't get that far by not having any skills. And I wanted to do one more term, syntax. That's a tax when an NFT is sold below a certain level. So when an NFT sets a syntax, you buy one of those, you can't sell it for less than you bought it for, or less than whatever that syntax is, or some of that money gets swept out of your purchase as a commission, and that goes generally into a DAO for the members. That's usually the best use of a syntax.
Yeah, and it allows larger royalties. So if your DAO is paying royalties, that means you're just going to get more parimutuel portion of that royalty.
So Sharks was a great proof of concept of that, because Sharks, what was that thing meant? It wasn't very much.
Oh my gosh.
0.01.
Dude, I've been in like 36 minutes.
It wasn't much. It was less than $1 of SOL. So Sharks went up to 0.093 and, close to 10x, and it will be 10x, 10 times what you had to have to originally mint that thing. And even if you bought some later, like I bought some later to fill in my collection after minting, and I don't think I paid very much for them. By the time I'm done, the value of my Sharks is now $450, but they didn't cost very much at all.
No, now didn't you hit whale status with the Sharks?
Yes.
Okay.
You gotta have 50 of those puppies.
Right, you have to have 50.
I have 51.
I have 53. But I don't have the most. There's somebody out there with 57. They got me by 4. And my competitive nature is like, I should just buy a couple, but but I'm not going to. I'm saving for their second generation mint that's coming up this month.
I always want to have an extra 1 or 2 around in these usually, and not to paper hands, but maybe to some like gold hands instead of diamond hands later. You never know.
Yeah.
It can't hurt to have one more.
No. Having one extra is always fun, because if something takes off, you can just toss it out there. So.